Welcome to the Business Infrastructure Podcast AI Conference.
Over the next 12 episodes, you'll hear a combination of fireside chats, keynote speeches, and product demonstrations, all centered around AI. Hi there, I'm Alicia Butler-Pierre, host of the Business Infrastructure Podcast, the show where we share operational tips, strategies, and tactics to help improve the way your company operates. We have another great episode lined up for you featuring our AI Tech Conference. This particular episode is bound to be packed with some really useful information that you can use to dramatically improve or transform the way you might be doing something in your back office operations. Before we get started, do me a really quick favor, please. Press pause, subscribe to this channel, hit the notification bell so that you'll know when other episodes come, and then press play and we'll get right into it. I hope you enjoy this episode. We're joined today by Mr. Clarence Levy himself. He's in Atlanta, Georgia, here with me. We were actually supposed to be in his studio together, but I couldn't make it, but he's still joining us from his studio. And he is the owner of Sabor Music Enterprises. And if his name and his company's name sound familiar to you, it's because they are the sound editing geniuses behind this podcast. So if you go back and listen to some of the first episodes of this show, it sounds really, I won't use any curse words here, but rhymes with hit and starts with an S, okay? And you listen to those compared to the more recent episodes, I would say over the last, year and a half to 2 years, noticeable difference. And so Clarence is actually going to come on and speak with us about AI and its use in the music industries. Particularly, we'll talk about his process for mastering music. So if you've ever been curious about what that process looks like, stay tuned. I guarantee you, you're in for a treat. So Clarence, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for
I
having me.
know this is the second time you've been on the show, I believe, right?
Right.
Now, so the first time, you are a man of many talents. And so the first time you were on, it was you and your business partner, Derek, and you all were talking about a product that you were creating for another company that you have. But you also have a background in engineering, right? What type again?
Electrical.
Electrical engineering. So you have this background in electrical engineering, but you also have this passion and love for music. So where did that start, that love and that passion for music? Because that's always been there, right?
Oh, yeah. From since I was a kid. I think I got a pair of drumsticks put in my hand when I was like 3. And and that was it. From that point on, it was music and percussion, drums. From that, it was started with the drums, and then from there it just grew into my first music I ever heard was reggae. My dad loved reggae, loved Bob Marley. That's the first music I ever heard. And then from there, it was just the drums. And then that, I had an uncle that was in the marching band at Peabody High School in Alexandria, Louisiana. And from there, I was watching him. And then, of course, the Human Jukebox right there in Southern.
Mm-hmm.
And I basically took it from there. And, I've always lived in music. Always.
So I know this about you because we went to high school together, but you were also in the band in high school, right? Did you play the drums?
Yep.
Or did you play a different instrument?
Oh, no, it was always percussion in the band.
Okay.
Yeah, from all the way from junior high, from at Struma Middle, all the way through to Scotlandville. Yeah.
Okay. And so then when you go on to college at Morehouse, what there? I know you're very active. You're still very active with your alma mater. So tell us a little bit more about what you were doing music wise at Morehouse.
I was well, after graduating, I marched 4 years there. After graduating, after some time, I became the drumline instructor. But I also, while I was there, started the drumline fraternity, the Funk Squad fraternity, which I didn't know that I was actually doing that. I was just doing what I do. And it was my 25th homecoming this past weekend.
Wow.
And if you could see the group of individuals who have come through Funk Squad over that period of time, you would have been like, wow.
Oh my gosh. So this is for those who are unfamiliar with what a drum line is, would you recommend going and watching the movie Drumline with Nick Cannon?
Oh yeah, I
Would
mean,
that
yeah,
give us
of
a
course.
really good idea? Okay.
I mean, yeah,
For those who may not
that's the
be
closest
familiar.
thing. That's the closest thing you're gonna get. Closest thing
Okay.
you're gonna get.
Okay. All right. So
Because
you
they had to water it down. That's Hollywood.
okay, so you go to Morehouse, and I know you were in a dual degree program, right, with Georgia Tech. So you come out of school, you have this engineering degree, you're working as an engineer, but there again, that passion for music has always been there. So at what point, Clarence, did you start your band?
So I started with a salsa band.
Okay.
Um, I don't even know. I mean, I've always been into Latin music and Afro percussion, Afro Latin percussion, and uh, I guess going to salsa clubs, dancing all the time. I went and bought a pair of bongos and figured I'm pretty good at this. And then my had a couple of my family members that also played, and of course we got mutual friends who also played instruments that played trombone and trumpet and everything, and they joined, and we did a little video. It actually sounded good, and so I think that was back in like 2007, and from there 2006, 7, something like that. From there we started that band, and we did that for a long time. It grew to a 13-piece orchestra.
Wow.
We were doing a lot of stuff around the city of Atlanta, and then we were unique because we were young. A lot of Latin bands that play the old school salsa, the real like the hard stuff, or salsa brava as they call it.
Hmm.
They're usually older. We were young with a lot of energy, so people liked us. Fast forward a couple years, I say maybe like 2011 or 12, I started the brass band, and from there, that was just my roots. You know,
Right.
using some of the same musicians, just pivoted. And so
Okay.
now we got on to the CW's The Originals show,
Wow.
4 out of 5 seasons of that. And then we got into a couple other things. We did a couple of us were in Alvin and the Chipmunks movie. That was 20th Century Fox. That was my first like big movie. That was awesome. Trailers, multi-day shoots, choreography, everything. It was cool. And then from there, we kept doing TV, and every now and then we'll get TV or we'll get film. So that's where I really want to live. And then out of that, with you, then I start on this podcast sound design journey.
So it sounds like Sabor Music Enterprises is kind of like this conglomerate where your band falls underneath that, but then you have all of these other things that you're doing as well, right? So there are the different gigs that you all play, but then there's the work that you're doing with TV, film,
Yeah.
podcasting now, even, right?
That's
So
me.
one of the things I know before we started recording, there was something, and I made a note to write this down that you mentioned the overall process. So whether you and your band are performing a gig or preparing for a set, whether you are preparing a musical score for a TV show, film, maybe even a commercial of some sort, or the podcast, it sounds like the process is you mentioned 3 steps: create, mix, and master. So I think the create part is self-explanatory, right? There might be some writing that's involved, but then the actual production of it all,
Right,
right?
right.
But can you explain what you mean by mixing when you're talking about the music process?
Yeah, so mixing and all any artist or any producer that's just getting started, they go through they go over these hurdles. You have to where you produce something, you created something, you compose something, and you're trying to get it heard. You want someone from the industry to hear it and hear your greatness and take you to beat Drake so you can have platinum. first thing that if you just take it straight, I don't care how good it sounds in the studio on those speakers, on these monitors, you take it raw like that without any adjustment, it will not sound like that when you put it into anything anything commercial for anyone else to hear it. And when they hear it, it's going to be distorted, it may be off. So then you need a trained ear. Someone, usually it's a studio engineer. They make big bucks, and they do it because those guys work hard because they have to take every single element in your song and make sure that it's blended correctly, and that it has the right levels. That if things are a little bit too hot, it's not. They do filtering. They do so much. That's where the hard work is, if you ask me. Because if you're a creator and you love creating, the creating is not work. Blessed to have a talent to do something to get paid. That's awesome. But then the studio engineer, I think that's where the real work comes in with the mix, because those are the ones who make it sound like pleasing to the ear.
And so I know just from previous conversations with you about this, that even once it's mixed, that still isn't enough. It then needs to go through a mastering process. So can you explain what that means?
So after it's mixed, then you go back out, and every artist does this. I just got a good mix. I'm going back to the guys, to the A&R, and he's going to say, yeah, man, okay, now I'm going to take you to Drake. We're going tomorrow. And they'll hear 10 seconds of it, and they'll say, it's not mastered. You can take this back. I don't care if it's, unless you're just the most, unless you're Michael Jackson at 5, and you're like undoubtedly the truth. No. So that from there you have to get it mastered. And when I do my music, if I'm doing live, a lot of times I'll pay to have it done. I would pay to have most of my stuff done as it was going commercial, or if it was going to be published. But then, now the technology, AI, has now come so far, because this is not the first time that I've used something like this, but in the beginning, it was just a lot of compression, and it wasn't, they just made it loud, but it wasn't it wasn't a good master. And when I would go to a competition or something, I would play tracks that had gone through that particular tool. It didn't stand up to the competition. So I stayed away from that for a while, and I went back to letting people master my stuff. But now it's come so far, now they have all these different things that they can do. Now they have tools. I found this new one that I started using, that I subscribed to. It's a subscription model, but it's called Cloud Bounce.
Okay.
So that's what I use at the end of most of my, unless it's something that I know has got so many different parts. I mean, once you get to a certain level, then maybe you might want to have somebody go in there and actually, the human touch will always be needed. I want to say that first and foremost. The human touch will always be needed. When you get to a certain level, it's going to be needed. But at levels where you're only doing a few tracks, and I think podcasting and things like this are perfect, like Cloud Bounce and things like it's perfect. I mean, you've heard the difference, right? If how it comes out. So
absolutely.
Oh yeah. So when I'm done, and I can mix a little bit too. I'm not a professional yet, but I guess I am a professional.
Yes, I'm about to say, what are you talking about? You're not a professional.
I mean, because the guys that I work with, they work with Neo, and
so a professional is someone who's worked with someone, in your eyes, it sounds like it's someone who works with famous people or people who've made it big. But you are a professional. Let me assure you.
I had to do the mind shift. Shout out to
no, let me assure you. You are a professional. So, okay, I want to make sure that I understand. So again, there's the creation process, and maybe we can use this podcast as an example. So there's the creation. Like right now, we are recording audio as well as video. And what will happen is that's the creation part. We're having this conversation, right? And as a result of that, we'll have this quote unquote raw footage, video footage, as well as audio. Right. And then, as you know, there's a lot of line editing that takes place, right? Particularly for the finished audio episode. So we do what we do, and then it then comes to you. And at that point, can you explain what you're doing, Clarence, and whether or not AI is involved in any part of the mixing aspect? Because I know you're listening to the audio once we've cut out the things that we want to cut out, we've added in or layered in some voiceover. You're then listening to it, and there's absolutely no sound, no music whatsoever. Can you explain to us what your is that part of the mixing process? Figuring out what songs to add or what music to compose, what sound effects to use, or no?
So sorry about this. So basically, I'll tell you this: choosing the music, choosing what sound effects to use. No, that's all. That's all me.
Okay.
That's all me. Now I do use. So let's say, if you want me to change a voice, right?
Mm-hmm.
There are some instances where I may use AI, I guess, because what happens is that there are some tools in my audio software that will actually go in and, I guess, same thing that Cloudbounce does, but on a smaller level, basically taking whatever waveform and analyzing it, basically, and then reproducing what the sound you want to hear.
Okay. So if I say I want a baby's voice,
Right.
I want to convert something that I say into a baby's voice, you
Right.
would type that into this tool
or
tell it.
I can go in and type in voice. I can go into, so I can use several different things. I'll go into a certain type of filter, and I'll just type in voice, or I'll go into a compressor. It's trial and error, and everybody will tell you it's trial and error. You're doing different things because you're trying to create a new sound from something else. So I'm using your voice, and I want to make it a higher pitch, of course, but it's even more than that. It needs to sound. If you want a baby sound, you want it to sound authentic. So I'll have to go in there and I'll play around with the frequencies, and I'll play around. But then, or if I find a preset, and presets, I think could be AI in a way, because what they do is they'll mimic a large room, small room. They'll mimic an environment. So I could take your voice, and I can if I can take your voice, and if it's real dry, if we wanted to have like an echo, I can put a hallway and make it sound like you're talking in a hallway or something like that. And these are presets that are set by the computer that actually analyze whatever it is, the analog that you're bringing in, and then it basically exports out the goal, the audio that you would like to hear. And then from there you have to adjust.
So it sounds like what you're describing is still very much part of that creation part of the process, right?
Yeah,
okay.
Mixing is creative, yeah.
So you're listening to the original, or excuse me, the edited audio, and then you're trying to figure out where to add sound effects, where to add certain music, because sometimes I might have a specific request like, hey, Clarence, can you use the sound like a military kind of sound or something like that, and you just take that idea that I may have, and you make it happen, whether you're composing it or doing whatever it is that you do. So okay, so you add the music, and then it goes through the mixing, right? But then it's mastered. So I'm still trying to make sure I understand the difference between it being mixed and versus mastered. So what is that extra oomph that mastering is giving something that the mixing still just doesn't quite have yet?
That's exactly what it is. It gives it oomph. It gives it that thing that takes it from, oh, you're just playing around, to, okay, you can play it on the radio, and you put this in anybody's car, and it's going to sound the same. It's going to compete with everything else that's out there that's considered to be professional.
Okay.
It sets the levels without going overboard. It's compression. It's also boosting, but then it's also like like this thing that I'm going to show, Cloud Bounce, it will go in and first analyze whatever you put into it, and it'll come back and tell you what it thinks it is, and then it masters according to that. So basically, if I put in a hard hitting track, usually it'll come back and say hip hop. If it has a lot of bass, it'll come back. Usually it's pretty good. Sometimes it gets confused. Like for the podcast, it gets confused because it's everything in your podcast. You got everything. We'll see what it says when we do it. But with the episode I got queued up. But I'll tell you, when I pay for mastering, when I pay from and I go to One Up Mastering, all I can say is they turn it around to me, and even though the mix that I'll have is professional and it sounds great, when they send it back to me, it's got a punch. Is what it gives it the punch to break through to the industry, to make it stand next to anything else out there, so that executives and the people in the industry, or whoever your audience is, they won't have a drop off whenever your material comes on.
Okay.
It's hard to explain because there's so many. When I asked the guy how he did what he did, he was explaining to me about these envelopes and stuff that he's adjusting, and he asked me what do I want to emphasize in it and whatever. And he makes sure that those parts of the music are emphasized. And
okay. So this AI that you're about to show us, that you're about to give us a demonstration of, called Cloud Bounce, is basically acting as the person who would typically do the mastering. What is that person typically called? Is that also the sound engineer, or
he's I guess, I mean, there's some sound engineers that do mixing, but they don't do mastering, because a lot of times you just you want to have a fresh pair of ears to do each process.
Okay.
It means a lot to have someone from the outside come in and do that process. But yeah, basically it replaces. So usually, if when I'm doing it, I use a guy, this guy Vernon, who works with Neo and other artists, and I have him do my mixes sometime with music. If I have like 18, 20, 30 tracks, sometimes you got to give it to someone who's going to be able to give it that oomph. But he does my mixing, but then he gives me files, stems. We'll talk about that too later, but stems to break everything out so that I can get that now to John. John is at One Up Mastering, and he does my mastering.
Okay.
And it's usually a 1 to 2 day turnaround, and we can do different versions, instrumental, vocals, whatever. And from that point on, I can just send him different versions, and he can master them just like that. But he has to set that algorithm first, and then from there, I guess it works.
So what takes John potentially 1 to 2 days to master would take Cloud Bounce what? A few minutes?
We'll see, a few minutes.
A few minutes. Okay, so I can certainly see how it streamlines your process. And if I'm understanding you correctly, it depends on what it is that you want to master as to whether or not you may decide to use an actual human to do it, right, or AI. Okay, so for something like the podcast, we just use
we got a main vocal track. You have a couple backing tracks, and it's funny, but when I actually do, sometimes if I'm doing something brand new, if I'm producing something brand new for your show, I'll actually go and pull up a brand new session, produce that track in a whole new session, and then bounce that and then put it into the session out. So it is just one track, and then I'll have the multi-track somewhere else so I can manipulate if I need to. Okay. So that I'm not taking up so much.
And one more quick question before you get into the demo. Is this what it means to own your masters? Because I hear that expression all the time in the music industry. So is that what that means? That once the music has actually been mastered, that is the end all be all of what that particular song can be, and you either own it or you don't as the artist? Is that what that means?
Yeah, you usually take a split based on how much you actually did. Like, so some artists just come in and let's just say an artist that comes in and doesn't write their own lyrics, they didn't do any production. So they may come in and the record label or whoever is putting up the money or whatever to do all this other stuff, they're going to take a percentage of that, of the mastering. They're going to take a percentage of the publishing. They're going to take a percentage of it. And so for you to own, yes, owning your own masters, yes. When you if for independent artists, if they do this, they do own their own they own their own masters. Now, it's like I said, it depends on whether you're independent or not. If you're coming in under a record label, they're going to have some sort of ownership of the master because they're going to pay out something to be able. They may even feed you the ideas that you're singing about. It depends on how much you're bringing to the table, how much you can actually fight for, what you want to keep. Okay. If you're writing all the lyrics, you're producing the music, and really they're just basically getting you out there. Then
the marketing, the marketing of it all,
Right. Then you should own. You're gonna own more of it.
Okay, that makes sense. All right, so without any further ado, can we take a look at Cloud Bounce?
Sure.
Okay.
So, really quick. All right. So, like I said before, Cloud Bounce is a subscription type software that I use, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to first grab a raw episode. I think it was which one was it?
Jennifer Wang. Jennifer Wang. Yes.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the raw version. This is right after I've gone in and done editing, mixing, added music, and everything sounds like it needs to sound for the final. And so I'll take that and I'll say this is something to show how efficient Cloud Bounce is. This is a 30-minute or more long piece, wave file. So this is not like some 3-4 minute song, right? And let me get this going here. All right, so basically you come into it, you just log in. And then what I do after I've sat here and I've put in the time to put everything together, I'm feeling good at this point. I can exhale. So the next thing I'll do is I'll grab the WAV file, drag it in. There it is.
So you just selected an audio file, you've clicked and dragged it into Cloud Bounce, and now what is it actually doing right now? It's saying that it's analyzing, but what exactly is it analyzing, Clarence?
It's analyzing the track. It's analyzing the peaks and valleys. It's analyzing, just everything. It's trying to find out first what type of music is it so that it can set the levels that it needs to set. Someone, when they did the programming, it's learning. It's basically learning. It's sitting there and it's learning whatever it is that's coming into it, whatever that input is, so that now it'll say, okay, it's giving you ambient. It says ambient.
Where do you see that? Oh, I see. Okay, so right, I can see the name of the original audio file, and then directly underneath it, it says ambient. But what are some of the other things that it could potentially say?
So it could come back. It could come back and say rock, pop, hip hop, drum and bass, EDM, deep house, all different types of classical. Then there's Cloud Bounce Originals. This is from the original. So I had Cloud Bounce before, and so these were the original, I guess, presets or whatever it would come back with. So there may be 1 or 2 extras in here, like world or something like that. But for the most part, it'll come back and it'll say, "This is what I think it is," and it goes ahead and then masters it. So we can let's listen to what this sounds like, ambient. This is original. Right after this got off, I finished my job. Now I'm pressing the button here.
Ah, I see you've come back. Well, I know why you're here, so let's go to the podcasting vault. Oh, I swear this door seems to get heavier every time I open it. Go ahead, take a seat.
So you hear the difference there? I mean, it's a big difference between the original
We have another special episode lined up for you.
and the mastered.
If you enjoyed the last remastered episode, then you'll enjoy this one too.
Okay, it's definitely clearer.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's crisp, it's radio clear. It goes and it does. And before, like I said, the older tools would just boost everything, and it was loud. But but now this doesn't do that, and you can actually it's some things I can come back and control. Like sometimes, or not sometimes, what I usually do is I'll say widener. It just makes it it gives a little bit more enhancement, and I'll sometimes put warmer. I'll just do warmer. It just gives it more of a more of a full feel. I'll do stuff like that based on what type of music was in the episode, stuff like that. And then once I'm done with that piece, if if that's good, I can even play with the loudness, because there was sometimes whenever we had problems with the voices being a little bit too sharp, the S's and T's.
Yes.
I used in the mixing, I use what they call a de-esser that takes off the intensity of the S's and T's. But then also in here, I can come in here and just kind of turn the loudness down a little bit.
Ah, okay.
And it still gives you that master sound, but it's just, like I say, it turns down that, it's just loud factor.
Okay.
Yep. So when I'm done with that piece, the next thing that I do, and I'm at this point, if I feel good with the adjustments I've made, I'll do something like that. I'm feeling good now. I'm almost done. I'm getting ready to send Alicia the next episode. I'm happy. So then, I hit this button here. Oh, I'll change it here, and I'll change this to mastered, just so so we know. Oh,
And this is the file name that you're updating.
yeah.
Yes. Okay.
I'll just say MAS, so I know this is the
Mm-hmm.
different one. And then I export it. It exports to a folder that I have for this already. And I'm just gonna export this to the desktop.
And so as you go through that exporting process, so it sounds like, Clarence, what could again potentially take another extra day or two just to have a human master it, you're able to, I mean, just in the time that we've been doing this interview, this demo,
Right.
you're doing this in a matter of minutes. And ambient and whether it's ambient, hip hop, rock, pop, it's analyzing the music that is in the audio file, determining, I guess ambient comes with these preset compression settings or something like that. Is that what it's doing?
It's basically classified because basically ambient could have pretty much anything in it. Ambient music could have you could have a very faint melody on a harp going on, and all of a sudden you can have a big bass drum or a gong, transitioning to another part, or something that sounds very low and deep and cinematic. So it can have those different. It can have things that would be very, very, where I guess the bounds would be very, very wide. So the threshold is very, very wide. So I guess it opens it up so that it can actually, I guess, analyze and do its thing on not only the music, which would be, the heavier sound, and not only that, but also just the audio.
Okay. Now, as it's still kind of going through its exporting process, but
it'll take a few minutes.
Okay.
Now it's going to spit out the final file that I actually share with you, and then you approve it.
And then that is what is then shared across the world on these different podcasting platforms for listeners to enjoy. This is really cool. Now, as we wait for this exporting portion to finish, the demo that you just shared with us, Clarence, it's what I'll refer to as a relatively benign use of AI, right?
Oh my goodness, yeah.
It's not hurting anyone, right? And
No.
no animals or children or anyone, no one was hurt in the use of AI in this instance. But we do know that it can be used nefariously, right? And I remember, I think it was earlier this year, I just remember being on Twitter. Uh, I don't know if it was called X at that point or not, but let's just say Twitter. And I just remembered seeing that there was something trending about a Drake and the Weeknd deep fake
Yeah.
album. I was like, what on earth is this? So I was
Yeah.
curious and I just started reading all of these threads and then I started watching these different news clips and they were talking about it. But if I remember correctly, it sounded like it was a situation where someone literally was able to take Drake's voice, the Weeknd's voice, bring them together into some type of an AI tool and literally create these brand new songs, if you will, and create an entire album. And then that was I don't know if it was being sold, but it was put
It,
out
it went
there.
it went it went viral. Definitely went. The
Okay.
song, it was a single with Drake and the Weeknd, and it went viral. I forget the name of it.
Wow.
I was just reading about it not too long ago. But yeah, it went viral. I mean, yeah, TikTok, you name it, whatever streaming platforms, and then right shortly after that, there was a whole Drake album. From what
Wow.
and I remember listening to it, and the thing about it is that yeah, it did sound like Drake, but there was a cheapness to it as far as it to me, I could tell by the texture of the voice that it wasn't quite him. It's like one of those things where you listen to a song and you like, is that Drake? That guy sounds like Drake. Like
Oh,
that,
okay.
to me. And
Okay.
a lot of people that I talked to, they were saying the same thing, but it still was not, it was impressive nonetheless. But it was, I feel like it lacked, it lacked, it lacked the human part.
Hmm. Do you know what AI tool they that was used to create that? Do you know what tool that was?
I do not know what that tool was.
Okay.
The guy, his name was Ghostwriter. That's
Wow.
all I know.
Did he get in trouble? Like
I don't
what
think he
happened?
was anonymous. It was anonymous, Ghostwriter. I don't think they found out who it was. And he said
Ah.
that he did say it's only the beginning.
Oh wow. Well, that's really scary because I would imagine that anything that has your voice that's out there online can technically be used, imported into an AI tool, and then used to I something else. This has nothing to do with music, but something else I remember reading about, which is a fairly not fairly, but it is a very disturbing trend, is using people's voices. So for example, using your daughter's voice to
Yeah,
call you or your wife,
yeah.
and she sounds as though she's in trouble. Daddy, mommy, can you please come help me? Someone has kidnapped me and they're holding me for ransom. And you're thinking that this is your daughter because the voice sounds it's that off, it sounds that real. But in fact it's not her at all. Yeah, so yeah, these deep fakes, I guess again that's the you've shown us the really cool side of it and how it can certainly streamline, the mixing as well as the mastering part of the work that you're doing. But unfortunately, it can also be used. There's some AI tools, it sounds like, in the music production, on the music production side of things, that could be used for, again, nefarious purposes. Because what if that person, I don't know if he made any money off of it or not, but um,
That's a good question. I don't know. That's one of the things I wanted to know because somebody was registered to that account that when they put out the I guess the original post or whatever they went out on
mhm,
TikTok or whatever. Like you know who did it, who used it, who
right.
I don't know. Somebody, if it was monetized, there was a check sent somewhere.
For sure.
I mean, yeah. I mean, anyway, I mean, it was legit viral. So there was some money to be made.
Right.
Now
right.
I do know that of course Drake and Weeknd on a huge, very powerful record label, and they were able to get it squashed and pretty quickly. So and I think they actually worked out. I think that was part of the conversation too. They worked out how money would be, where would it go from
Mhm.
that. So they can actually go to the YouTubes and the Spotify's and tell them, oh no, you reroute that check this way.
Right. Right. But for smaller independent
Oh,
artists that are out there just trying to get established, I could see how that could be absolutely devastating, because you literally may not have the financial wherewithal to fight it the way that Drake and The Weeknd could. So I
yeah.
definitely see how this as cool as it is, it's also a little scary what it has the potential to do. But
Right, right.
hopefully, people will use it for the right purposes. Clarence, as we start to wrap up here, do you have any words of advice or encouragement, especially for those who may not necessarily be artists, but may be the aspiring sound engineer, or they want to learn a little bit more about how to mix and master, and not necessarily be on the production side of things, and how they can leverage AI?
Oh, oh, definitely. I mean, to folks who are really on the side of uh, really wanting to make things sound really good. Sound is more. I guess it's a step further than, or a step beyond just creating the music. It's more so, now let me make this sound pleasing. And we already think it sounds pleasing when we do it, when we create it, right? But if you were to put it out there on a regular platform, you would quickly hear, if it was up against something else out there on the radio, that is not that pleasing, and people would start to, even if it's decent, they wouldn't like it because it's not up to par, so to speak. So I would say, definitely for those who think that maybe, oh, I don't play an instrument or I don't do this, but I still love sound. I know, when I hear something that sounds good, I can pick things out, and you have, a good ear, so to speak. This is a way to get into the industry, and you can work with pretty much, up and coming to anybody if you get good at it, because it's a much needed skill. And the thing about it is, if you're independent, if you're doing the mixing, using things like Cloud Bounce can definitely help you on the mastering side, because that's where it gets really expensive as well. So for up in this helps you to be able to do this and compete and actually give yourself a chance. If you don't have the big baller budget, that's what
The BBB, the B3, the
the
big
big
baller
budget.
budget. Okay. B cubed. Okay. And on that note, Clarence, thank you so much. This was really cool to see, because I just know that I have these ideas sometimes and I send it to you and you just make it happen, and it comes back and it's like, wow, this sounds amazing. But to actually see what you're a little bit, getting a little taste of what you're doing, this has been really cool, very helpful, and I have an even greater appreciation for the work that you do, not only on this show, but the things that you're doing with your band, and the work that you're doing in TV, film, and even commercials. So much continued success to you, my friend, and let's keep collaborating and doing more important and fun projects together.
We definitely will. Thank you for having me on. As you can see, the file has completed, and in under 30 minutes, you have a mastered file that's ready to go to the world.
Wow. So for those of you watching this video, make sure you click the link so that you can hear the actual audio, because that's what's going to be much more edited in comparison to the video that you're watching right now. Go take a listen to the audio so that you can really hear the difference compared to this actual video version of the podcast interview that you're watching right now. Clarence, thank you again.
Thank you very much.
I hope you enjoyed watching this video, and We have even more great videos coming up for you. They'll include actual demonstrations of different AI tools that you can start using to improve the way your business operates. So make sure you subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell so that you don't miss any of this information that's coming up. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next video.